Hello peeps, I'm Mason Velez.
And I'm Junko Enoshima.
Today we have the 20th Double Salute House installment this week, so the first segment is the classic games on modern consoles.
And the second segment is The Incredibles 2. We may not watch the sequel, but we're saluting to it anyways.
Alright, let's start the show.
Oh hell yeah, we can't wait.
Okay, we have a special guest for this week's episode, Sage Martel.
Okay Sage, any reason why old school games have to be ported on modern consoles?
It all started in the mid-90s. I assume the PlayStation and Super Nintendo are the first console that have games from the 70s and mostly from the 80s to port on. Take one for instance, Missile Command is one of the classic games that eventually ported in the Atari Collection Volume 1 on PlayStation 1, Super Nintendo and Sega Saturn. I can tell that happened to PlayStation 2, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Dreamcast, Xbox and so on.
The classic games sure bring back memories. Instead of playing the physical games in classic consoles, you're either playing the original or remastered versions on the modern ones.
Okay, now what else should we say about the old games on new consoles? Let's roll the gameplay footage while we talk about them. Starting this off from scratch is that porting requires adapting the game's source code to be compatible with the target platform's architecture and programming language. This can involve rewriting, reconfiguring and optimizing code to ensure the game runs smoothly on the new platform. Ain't that right, Junko?
It is, Mason. People would search any answer on Google by typing, "How hard is it to port games to the Nintendo Switch?" Google gave us the answer. Bringing older games to the Switch can be particularly challenging when developers want to port games to that console, as it might involve updating outdated code, assets, and systems to be compatible with modern hardware and software standards of the Switch.
I remember that one time I purchased the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Remastered for the PlayStation 5, and that had fucked up graphics, broken-ass gameplay and other shit that Rockstar should have double-checked. So people would ask, is PC gaming overtaking consoles? Well, yes. According to an investment strategy firm, since 2021 PC gaming has been on the upswing. The platform now claims 53% of non-mobile gaming sales, according to a report from investment research from Epilion, compared to 47% for consoles. Well, isn't that a fact, Sage? It can take up to 6 months or more to make the deadline right on time. Everything, and I mean fucking everything, first of all depends on the game's complexity, its size, the source language and SDK you've used to develop it, the urgency of the project, so how to transfer old games from the SD card to the Wii, selecting the type of content, like a channel or save data for it. Choose the SD card tab at the top of the screen, select the content you wish to move and then select copy, and click yes to copy to the system memory.
Major game companies have ported classic games on modern consoles. Mostly we hear are like up to over 20, 30 or more games in one compilation video game release, like Midway Arcade Treasures, Capcom Classics Collection, Sonic Mega Collection, Metal Slug Anthology, SNK Arcade Classics, Taito Legends, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics. Yep, Midway Arcade Treasures had a third release full of 8 retro racing games featuring San Francisco Rush, Hydro Thunder, Stun Runner, and 2 versions of Super Off-Road.
Don't forget about Nintendo with NES Remix for the Wii U, 3DS, and the Switch, which is composed of 16 vintage Nintendo Entertainment System games with a total of 204 challenges throughout. What I don't like about the ported old games on new consoles is that the save states aren't around. None of the Midway Arcade Treasures games have save states, or Sonic Mega Collection for that matter, on the GameCube at least. Speaking of Sonic Mega Collection, it's the first compilation game that I grew up with on the GameCube. They have 7 Sonic the Hedgehog games. The PlayStation 2 and Xbox and PC versions has some Sega Game Gear games such as Sonic Labyrinth, Sonic Blast or should I say, Sonic Slow Ass. A VGN reference, and they have save states. Thank God that this one has it.
Well, ported games frequently come with numerous bugs, particularly when the original development team did not conduct comprehensive testing. Issues often arise because porting teams might not have the same in-depth knowledge of the game's inner workings. making it easy to overlook potential problems. It's a laborious process requiring specific knowledge and skills.
However, certainly worth it if you go into the process with the right mindset and resources. The time and effort needed to properly port a classic game can be substantial, making it financially challenging for developers to justify the investment, especially for lesser-known titles. Midway, Capcom, Limited Run, SNK, Sega, Taito, Activision, Atari, Sammy Corporation, Namco, Tecmo, and etc. have worked their asses off to make it just as perfect as necessary. While graphical upgrades are often expected, significantly enhancing visuals could potentially alter the game's artistic style and feel too different from the original, like Rampage World Tour for example. The 1997 and 1998 original release sound and looked almost as good as the arcade version, and the Midway Arcade Treasures 2 versions are the same, but the sound effects and music soundtrack sound different.
Capturing the precise feel and nuances of a classic game, including physics, responsiveness and input lag, can be difficult on new hardware. Yeah, the porting developers must look out and double-check the lags and fix them.
Some classic games, especially the ones from the 2000 and 2010 era, may not translate well to modern gaming standards or appeal to a new generation of players. It sure is a true definition of why porting and remastering team had to either cancel or postpone their games and push the deadline a few times further, never rush the perfection, and never release anything unfinished. Sometimes the ports from the original can be a disaster, but most of them are just as well done as ever. Ain't that right, Junko? It is sage, especially when they feature online multiplayer and achievements to classic games when porting them.
They allow for enhancements like higher resolutions, improved frame rates, and updated controls. Sage, enhancing the classic gameplay experience.
Okay peeps, we have another guest for another segment, and she's coming back from Titan Academy.
It's definitely not going to be Chloe or Crystal. Come on over.
Hello peeps, I'm Olivia. Alright guys, what segment shall we salute on?
Well, do you remember the first Incredibles movie that I saluted on weeks ago?
We are going to salute on the 2018 sequel, so why the fuck not?
Well, ain't that a surprise? It makes me want to start the Incredibles double feature.
That's good. Anyways, let's roll the gameplay footage. The movie begins with Frozone and the Incredibles battle the Underminer. They prevented the villain from destroying the city hall, but are unable to stop him from robbing the bank and making his escape. The lukewarm success and massive property damage prompt the government to shut down the superhero relocation program, ending financial assistance for the Supers. Violet's classmate and love interest Tony Rittinger discovers her superhero identity. Agent Rick Dicker accidentally erased Tony's entire knowledge of Violet.
Wealthy siblings, Winston and Evelyn Deaver, who run the telecommunications company DevTech, propose secret missions to Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl and Frozone. These are to be recorded and broadcast in a movement to regain public trust in superheroes. Winston rehoused the Parr family in a luxury mansion. Ooh, mansions are so fucking exquisite and tremendous and stupendous.
Bob struggles in his new role as a stay-at-home father, left to deal with Violet's dejection over Tony forgetting their first date, Dasha's math homework, and the chaos of Jack's burgeoning superpowers. He suppresses envy for Helen and Lucius's advice, calls on Ednamo to look after Jack. Meanwhile, in the city of New York, Helen encounters the Supervillain Screenslaver, a hacker who can perform hypnosis through any screen. After Screenslaver has been defeated, he's unmasked and caught on 4K only to be discovered as a disoriented pizza delivery driver.
Wow! What a fucking twist if you ask me about that. Shit! Olivia, Helen realizes Screenslaver lured her to a decoy double, and the pizza delivery driver was under the control of hypnotic goggles. Evelyn reveals herself to be the true Screenslaver and captures Helen, restraining Helen and using her goggles and a freezing cell that negates Helen's self-stretching superpowers. That's fucked up. What's also fucked up is Evelyn and Winston's father died, shot by burglars, and their mother died of grief.
Later on, Evelyn lures Bob into a trap on the Everjust, goggling him, and sends a squadron of hypnotized supers to subdue Dash and Violet. Lucius arrives to protect them but is overwhelmed and goggled. They escape with Jack in a refurbished Incredible, the supercar once owned by Bob, and deducing their parents' peril. Stowaway on the Everjust, the children arrived. Jack removed the goggles on Helen, who in turn frees Bob and Lucius. Now they finally work together to release the other mind-controlled supers and safely maneuver the Ever just into port.
Evelyn escapes in the yacht's parasite jet but instantly caught on 4K by Helen and arrested, with another disaster averted and the positive publicity surrounding this. Supers around the world regain their legal and respected status just as Winston hoped. Sometime later, Tony Rittinger is picked up by Violet and her family in The Incredible for their reinstated movie date. Wow! And they spot a police chase. Violet leaves Tony at the cinema, promising a quick return before the parks enthusiastically don their old superhero masks and join the pursuit.
Well, what else about The Incredibles 2 grossed out $608.6 million in both United States and Canada combined, and $634.2 million in other territories, for a total worldwide gross of $1.242 billion. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 93% based on 390 reviews, with an average rating of 7.9 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, Incredibles 2 reunites Pixar's family crime-fighting team for a long-awaited follow-up that may not quite live up to the original, but comes close enough to earn its name.
On Metacritic, which assigns a normalized rating to reviews, the film has a weighted average score of 80 out of 100 based on 51 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film a rare grade of A+ on an A+ to F scale, the same score as the first film, making it the first and so far only film franchise to have received this grade for every installment. Those at Post-Track gave the film a 93% overall positive score and an 83% definite recommend.
Despite the nominations of various awards, it won 7 of them, and one of them in second place. Runner-up much, yes it is, June 15, 2018, the day where the sequel existed. It was great, and Pixar's third film to gross $1 billion after Finding Dory and Toy Story 3, which lasted up to almost 6 years until the theatrical release of Inside Out 2 in 2024. It was named by the National Board of Review as the best animated film of 2018. Hey Mason and Junko, the Wikipedia page of this sequel is that The Incredibles 3 is being developed by Brad Bird, and speaking of Brad Bird, this director is a complete godsend for both incredible releases.
I can see that, Olivia. Ever since The Incredibles became a franchise, they just can't get enough.
The main fact is, hopefully y'all will agree, y'all can never have way too fucking many.
That's such an underrated statement, guys. In other words, facts.
So in conclusion, my fellow peeps, classic games on modern consoles like MVC Arcade Classics on the Nintendo Switch, for example, is mostly the best idea ever. I give this shit a big thumbs up. Nothing can go wrong with playing Frogger, Pac-Man, Mortal Kombat, Sonic the Hedgehog, Grand Theft Auto, and a bunch of games that we played from the original sources the first time.
Well said, Sage. And as for The Incredibles 2, it's just as awesome as the first from 2004. Brad Bird is one of the most talented directors next to Pete Docter, Michael Bay and Quentin Tarantino.
I can see that. Nothing can go wrong with superheroes doing what they can to keep the entire world from massive corruption. It makes me want to watch a back-to-back double feature of The Incredibles.
Yeah, Olivia, you can count me in.
This is going to be such despairing fun.
I would like to join in too, Olivia.
Alright then, Sage, now say less.
Alright peeps, that wraps up for this week's Salute House episode. Stay tuned next week for the 20th Triple Salute House installment.
If you don't like any of the segments that we saluted on, then your opinions are tolerated. The Incredibles double feature awaits, peeps.